Uh, Good evening and welcome to the Mayoral and City Council Forum for the City of Maplewood. My name is Linda McLoon. I'm a member of the Roseville Area League of Women Voters and a resident of Roseville, and I will be moderating this evening's Meet the Candidates Forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I would like to thank the candidates who've agreed to participate in our first virtual candidate forum. We had a couple of hiccups, but I think we're good now, so we can only get better. The League is a nonpartisan volunteer political organization for both women and men, organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage informed and active participation in government. This forum is part of our ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. This allows you, the listener, an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss issues that are important to you in your community. In a limited format such as this, we certainly aren't going to be able to ask all your questions, and we encourage you to contact the candidates directly if your question wasn't answered, and we did receive questions in advance. We hope that over the course of this program, you'll learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do if elected to serve as mayor or to serve in the city council. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our communities strong. And if you're interested in learning about how to make a similar impact, I'd encourage you to visit the League of Women Voters website at lwvmn.org. I would also like to remind everybody that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters, and sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement by the League for any candidate. All candidates who filed for these offices were invited, and everyone is participating in this forum, so thank you all. This year, the citizens of Maplewood are holding a special election for mayor, a special election for one city council member to serve a 2-year term, and 2 city council members for full 4-year terms. And again, all of the candidates listed on the Minnesota Secretary of State website as registered candidates are participating in this forum. We use questions that were previously submitted, and we always use questions that are addressed to all candidates and not personal or directed at only one candidate, and all questions become the property of the League of Women Voters. And similarly, answers to the questions, I would have you focus on the questions themselves, and while a candidate's record may be discussed, we don't allow personal attacks, as you guys all know. So let me now just introduce all of the candidates for this evening. First, we have 2 candidates for the special election for mayor. They are Marylee Abrams and Bob Cardinal. For the 2 full-term seats on the city council, we have 4 candidates for the 2 seats: Rebecca Cave, Garrett Krueger, Sylvia Neblett, and Nikki Villavicencio. And for the special election for a 2-year seat on the city council, we have Bill Knutson and Diana Longree. So the order of the forum is that all candidates will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement. I will then ask questions with 2 minutes per response, or I may decide to shorten it if I have a question that I think maybe doesn't merit 2 whole minutes. And then at the end of the question period, you'll have 2 minutes for your closing statements that will be given in reverse order from the opening statements. Our timer will say 30 seconds and then stop when your 2 minutes have elapsed. And we will enforce this to ensure equal time to all candidates. So we're going to begin with the opening statements. So again, you have 2 minutes for each response. We'll start with the mayoral special election candidates, and we will start with Marylee Abrams.
Thank you, and good evening, Moderator McLoon, Timekeeper Warner, fellow candidates, and all those tuning in to this most unusual Maplewood Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Roseville Area League of Women Voters. Despite a global pandemic, virtual candidate debates are a true grassroots level example of our democracy in action. They provide an opportunity for voters to meet the candidates for Maplewood's elected office, learn more about the issues, and prepare to cast their ballots this fall. I have been a proud resident of Maplewood for over 25 years. I raised 2 sons who attended School District 622 and graduated from North High School. I recently retired after practicing law for 36 years, and I became a grandma this summer. I have a reputation of being hardworking, respectful, and someone who collects all the facts and makes solid decisions. I have no other agenda other than to represent all of the residents of Maplewood and ensure Maplewood is known for the quality of our public services, our police, fire, roads, and parks, the friendliness and inclusion of our neighborhoods, and a great place to start or run a business. I was elected to the City Council in 2014 and again in 2018. In 2019, I was appointed as Mayor of Maplewood when former Mayor Slawick was appointed as Chair of the Met Council. As Mayor of Maplewood, I have led our city through the pandemic and social unrest over the last 6 months.
30 seconds.
Moving initially from emergency mode to adapting, all while ensuring essential city services were provided to our residents. I've taken a firm position to not raise our city tax levies for 2021, recognizing many are struggling with lost jobs and potential business losses. Despite our present challenges, I see Maplewood as having abundant opportunities if we all work together. I have the skill set, the commitment, and professionalism to lead Maplewood through these challenging times. I ask for your support and your vote as Mayor of Maplewood on November 3rd.
Thank you. Our next mayoral candidate for the special election is Bob Cardinal.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Bob Cardinal. I was born and educated in Maplewood. I live in Maplewood, the present residence address since 1998. That's 2497 Adele Street. I've served on the Maplewood City Planning Commission. I served 6.5 years from February 1985. I was a youngster until October 1991. I was elected to the Maplewood position of mayor in November 1999 and took office in December of 1999. I served until re-election in November of 2001, served as Maplewood mayor until January of 2006. I was elected to the Maplewood City Council in 2011 and served until January of 2016. Presently, I serve on the Maplewood Historical Preservation Commission, and that's been since March 2016. The mayor and the city council are responsible for the strategic direction of the city government through policies and ordinances that are carried out by the city manager. The city council is responsible for budgeting and taxation and is accountable for listening and hearing what the Maplewood residents have to say. Open communication is needed, as this will change with the recent past several years in the city of Maplewood. After listening to Maplewood residents and receiving consultation, the city council makes decisions on behalf of the residents of Maplewood. This election will create a new city council and take corrective direction for the city of Maplewood.
2 minutes. Your time is up.
Okay,
Thank you. We will now move on to our candidates for the 2 full-term seats on the City Council, and we will start with Rebecca Cave.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, League of Women Voters, for having this forum tonight. It's the first time I have done a forum like this, and I'm sure all of our candidates are the same. I would just like to start off that I'm a third-generation Maplewood resident. I belong to Maplewood Presentation Parish, and I've had my children go there and now my grandchildren. I've served twice on the Maplewood City Council, and I have a proven track record on that council of an ongoing commitment to working for the citizens. I'm someone you can count on to represent you, to get the facts, to represent the citizens of our community and not special interest groups that have their own agenda. Public safety is very key to me, very important to me, and especially during these times. The safety of each one of our citizens is very important, as well as the safety of each police officer, firefighter, and EMT. The number one goal is to have everyone return home safe after each shift. We need to listen to our citizens and what their needs are in public safety. and it's very important in our West Maplewood and South Maplewood areas. Nature Center, parks, and public open space. I've been a vocal advocate for the protection and preservation of our natural parks and public open spaces, and now I'm going to add the Maplewood Nature Center. The Maplewood Center has been around for 40 years, and it's an educational hub and exploration center for all those who love nature. I've taken my kids and now my grandkids to these beautiful parks and have enjoyed it much over the COVID. We've got to spend a lot of time outdoors. Business retention and redevelopment are also important. Maplewood's a vibrant first-ring suburb, and we need to get the business strength, the community demographic.
Please stop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate for the 2 full-term seats on the City Council is Garrett Krueger.
Good evening, everyone. First, as someone who was born in Maplewood many years ago, I want to thank you and say how grateful I am for this opportunity to represent the people of the city of Maplewood. So many times in the past, perhaps like many others of us, I've been frustrated when I contacted my representatives only to have them respond to me in a manner of telling me how I was wrong in what I would request or ask. And in my mind, this is not how a representative should behave. I aim to change that. My goal is to be a true representative of the people, an advocate for what you tell me to do, not follow some partisan platform or what they say or some other government agents and what they want. The people, the citizens, are right in their wishes. And the job of a representative is to put aside his or her own beliefs and listen to the people, to advocate for what they ask. In addition, I believe public safety is a necessity. I aim to help reestablish as necessary and then continue positive relations between politicians and law enforcement, to insist how I can, and to let them know not everyone in politics is against them. It's for these reasons I have decided to run for the Maplewood City Council. And as stated a moment ago, I look forward to this opportunity. And I ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate for the full-term seat on the City Council is Sylvia Neblett.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sylvia Neblett. I am a 20-year resident of Maplewood and a current sitting council member for the past 2 years. I am married to the kind and supportive Adonis Neblett. I have 4 adult children, Matthew, Tamara, her husband Eli, and Marcelo. I have 1 delightful grandson by the name of Cyrus, and my family means everything to me. Outside of my council life, I am the current chair of the Ramsey County Library Board of Trustees and a member of our local school community advisory board. Besides spending time with my family, I love to read and have recently discovered audiobooks, the best thing in the world if you haven't tried it, and to take long, quiet walks in nature, and Maplewood offers lots of options there. The 3 things I'm really concerned about in our city that will have rippling effects for years to come are our finances, both assets and debts, the continual growth and support of our community policing, our schools, which include our students and our teachers. There are so many good things going on right now in Maplewood, even with the unknown financial picture. This city is still growing, thriving, and a wonderful place to live. I would like to continue to work for the citizens of Maplewood to ensure that we are being physically responsible with our money and be a voice that is concerned with the people who live here. I hope the voters will give me an opportunity to serve them for 4 more years. Thank you.
Thank you. The final of the 4 candidates for the full-term seats on the City Council is Nikki Villavicencio.
Hi, my name is Nikki Villavicencio, and I'm running for Maplewood City Council a 4-year term. I'm excited to be here tonight and thankful for the opportunity. We live in a time that the state of our democracy is at a critical point. If we want democracy to be by the people, for the people, then democracy should start on the bottom. That's why I'm running for Maplewood City Council. We need a local government that is not only representative of our growing community, we need a local government that works with the community to create policies that work for all. Growing a community that puts the residents' needs at the center is not an easy task. We will have to make bold, difficult decisions. We can start by bringing back public comments to city council meetings. As someone who has spent over 10 years giving testimony at the Minnesota State Capitol, having public comment is essential to upholding democracy. We will also have to take a hard look at the budget and make sure we are prioritizing the needs of our residents. Maplewood's economy is dependent on the prosperity of the redevelopment of key places in Maplewood, like the Maplewood Mall. As someone who sat on the North End Task Force, I know that our residents have great ideas and plans with the city. As a Maplewood City Council member, I would prioritize the local businesses that have deep roots in Maplewood. They are one of the keys to our city's success. Growing Maplewood also means respecting the diversity we have. Both decisions around public safety and community engagement are the obligation of the city council. As a city council member, I will always be working towards better outcomes. Policies need to be changed as Maplewood changes. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the candidates for the special election for City Council, and we'll start with Bill Knudsen.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm currently finishing a 2-year term that I was appointed to, looking for the next 2-year term. Been in Maplewood for 36 years, raised 3 boys here, and they were in both school districts. I've been a healthcare executive for 30 years, and the highlight of that career was developing St. John's back in the early 80s. I was also active in development of senior housing and other opportunities. I'm currently the CEO of the Nursing Home Cooperative, which, of course, gives me a lot of stress right now. Then I consulted nationally for a number of years, but I really wasn't connected. I reconnected in Maplewood through the EMS task force and began to enjoy the opportunity to serve, enjoy the opportunity to really engage with a very talented staff throughout Maplewood. And again, I was applied in January of 19. For the last year and a half, I've learned a lot. The city is an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing network of people, and it's an amazing group of leaders. I actually was proud to serve on what I call the garbage committee. I think the city really did a great job. We had 5 different RF respondents, and I think we did a great job in creating an opportunity for all the people in Maplewood. I'm now the president of the Economic Development Authority. I'm also on the Park and Recs Commission, a Design Review Board, and Planning Commission. So I get to observe and participate in a lot of what's going on and important to Maplewood. I think strategies regarding development, we have to look at where people work and live. I think that's really important. Maplewood is well managed. It has an incredible bond rating. Its tax capacity is greater than we charge, and we're doing a 0% increase. Working with the EDA, I want to focus on the medical corridor around St. John's. It's a long-term prospect to develop medical communities, but it's something I've done and something that would be very important to this community. I support public safety.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our second candidate for the special election for City Council is Diana Longry.
Yes. Hello. I'm Diana Longry, and first of all, I want to thank you for having this event this evening, and thank you for all the candidates for showing up. Now, for the folks that are listening to this and who will listen to this later, please get out to vote November 3rd for Diana Longry. There's a lot of different reasons why I think that you should vote for me, and we don't have a lot of time to talk about that during this particular forum. But I'd like to direct you to my website, which is my name, DianaLongry.com. DianaLongrie.com. Or quite frankly, I love having personal contact with voters, people in the community, folks who have concerns, whatever it is you want to talk about. Give me a call, 651-214-0859.
I think that really at the heart of our grassroots democracy in our community is having public comment at city council meetings. And that has been removed by this current council and the one before. And they've removed it so they can shorten their meetings, because they can just Twitter answers. They can just Facebook the answers. Well, you know, that's not the same as one-on-one contact, where you can look somebody in the eye, where you can actually have a dialogue. So please, vote for Diana Laundrie November 3rd, and I'm sure we're going to have more questions where I can tell you more about my positions on things. Thank you.
Thank you all. So we're now going to start the questions, and we're going to do our best to keep we're going to have to extend our time a little bit because we had a little bit of a slow start. So with these, I'm going to jump all around, so you're just going to have to hopefully listen for your names. So I'm going to start this question with Bob Cardinal. The first question is, COVID-19 disease has created difficult challenges for small businesses. What can or should the city be doing to help them? So, Bob Cardinal.
Thank you. This is Bob Cardinal, addressing the question on COVID-19. First off, I'd like to say that this is affecting everyone, and we're all in this together. There's going to be some major challenges with real estate taxes. We're going to have some dips in collecting those taxes, and it's going to affect the city tremendously. There's probably going to be zero growth in the economy, so it's going to affect all the residents and the whole community. I think one thing that we could do is recognize this, and as stated, the city has taken the position not to increase taxes. Well, that's something that should be recognized, and I think there should be a decrease in the collection of taxes, 10 or 20%, because people don't have the money. We're in a community that is not one of the highest paid family income. We need to recognize that. I don't think it's been recognized recently. So I think the most important thing is to recognize the capability of the property owners and the school district costs that are impacting each family in Maplewood. That's what I
30 seconds.
Right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate, Marylee Abrams. Same question.
Thank you very much. COVID has affected everybody. It's a global pandemic. I have been using the description that we are all in the same storm. However, we are in different boats depending on our unique circumstances. I can tell you that as mayor, the city has taken our businesses very seriously and has tried to encourage our businesses in a variety of different ways. The city council decided to relax our city ordinances in terms of outdoor seating for our restaurants. We recognized that restaurants were closed for a period of months. Those restaurants in our city that serve alcohol, we recognize that they pay for a liquor license, and yet they weren't able to serve anyone for the time that they were closed by the governor's executive order. I brought to the council the suggestion that we should reduce the liquor fees for their licenses for a period of 2 months, and that was adopted by the council in order to support and bolster up our businesses. Right now, we have, well, last month, the most recent record indicates that unemployment is at 9.8%. As the mayor, I certainly recognize that, and we are doing everything that we can to support those folks that are unemployed. We are working with the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce and also the White Bear Area Chamber of Commerce to come alongside our businesses, to support our businesses. We're looking for new and creative ways to help people who have who are unemployed. Our Y is providing food 5 days a week between 11 and 2 for those who have lost their jobs and are food challenged right now. And so we certainly are looking for additional ways, but we are very recognized.
Please stop.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next candidate to answer this question is Garrett Krueger.
Yes, the COVID-19 has caught us all by surprise. We had a status quo of a lifestyle that was floating along, and suddenly everything was upended. And in that sense, I agree already with what some of the other participants have suggested, in that reducing or holding off the tax burden, or a larger portion of the tax burden of some of these struggling businesses, would go a long way to helping them maintain their stability and their long-standing position in the community. Another thing I would like to see, as much as we can, obviously we're a community within the blanket of the state of Minnesota, but the COVID numbers really need to be paid attention to. These numbers are, I think, continuing to drop. And so as soon as possible, we need to be able to open things up for the businesses again, to allow them to resume normal activities. Just when I've shopped around, it's clear that they're very vacant by comparison to how they were, 7, 8, 9 months ago. So I think that would be the way I would look at it, just to help smooth things along for the businesses by reducing the citywide burden on their behalf, so that they can at least stay afloat for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sylvia Neblett.
Yes, thank you. Well, just like the mayor said, we have taken some actions in terms of forgiving the 2-month liquor licenses for those establishments in the city that do serve those beverages. But we've also, whenever the state has given us care funds, we've passed those down to folks as much as possible. Of course, they don't give us endless funds, but the monies we have had, we've made sure that they've gotten as much as possible to businesses, to St. John's, to other places, the Y, and supporting the Y, because the Y has also taken on supporting police and firefighters and their children, and being available to help with that, because that is a whole different concern in itself. You're asking people to go to work, and some businesses don't even have that luxury of providing child care for their staff's children. But it's something we need to take. It's something that needs to be always taken care of and looked at. But I think we've made some strides in trying to give businesses some relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Nikki Villavicencio.
Hi. Yes. My thoughts around the COVID is that, they've been devastating to my family. I'm a mother, and we're dealing with online schooling and hybrid and all those types of things that are going on. But as a city council member, I really think it's important to support the local businesses in Maplewood. And so I've been involved in the Chamber of Commerce cooperation with our city, and I think that's a good start. But we need to keep making sure we're focusing on the Maplewood businesses that really have roots in Maplewood, not necessarily the big corporations, but the small businesses that really support every aspect of Maplewood, whether it's their employees, that they employ the residents of Maplewood and they train them up to be great employees, and they train them to be good to their customers. We need to support those types of businesses. And the way we need to start is by speaking to them directly and supporting those type of businesses. I am in favor of releasing some of the regulations for the businesses and licensures. I think that we should extend it for a longer period of time, because as we know, this COVID
30 seconds.
pandemic is not going away. And so we need to come up with long-term plans, not just for now, but for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Rebecca Cave.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. A lot of great ideas out there and a lot of great things that have been done. Relieving the tax burden on our businesses, especially small businesses in Maplewood, would be the first thing I would go after. My other thoughts around COVID is supporting local businesses. I've had numerous friends who have businesses that half of them have gone out of business, another half is struggling to stay in. Some have reopened and then they had to shut down again. A lot of focus in our community group and people that I know in the community have gotten to social media where we are putting out outlets to support local. It's very important that we do it at this time where we have Amazon and all these shipping taking all the business as we see our mom and pop stores going out of business. And the COVID will hopefully come to an end. And, you know, I don't want to see all these businesses empty like you see them now. It's just really sad when you go through the towns or even downtown and see what a devastation this has been. Being flexible with ordinances and regulations, I definitely, if I was on the city council, would look at that avenue. But as for care funds, I would focus those more on small businesses in Maplewood. I would center on the mom and pop stores once again, because they're the contributing part of Maplewood that the feelers that keep us going. We do have large corporations here, and that's fabulous. But a lot of people live in Maplewood, work in Maplewood, and they don't always work at the big stores. They work at the smaller stores, medium size, and keeping them employed, especially during this time, is a high priority of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Diana Longry.
Yes, thank you for this question. What can the city of Maplewood do during COVID-19 or after post-COVID-19 for our business community? Well, I have a couple of ideas about that. Certainly, the idea of holding the line on spending and taxation, that is a definite plan of action that must be taken. But there's a couple of other things that the city can do to help our community. For instance, when it comes to full road reconstruction and improvement projects, maybe the time isn't now to do the full road reconstruction project and the big assessments that go along with those improvement projects. Instead, our city has the equipment where we can do very nice patches, or we can do strip and overlay. We have that equipment in our public works department. And the cost of doing that is much less than doing a full road reconstruction, and will keep our roads from having to pothole. Secondly, another idea is that we have a communications department and the full capability of being able to do film stories. The last count, there was approximately 749 businesses in the city of Maplewood. Every single one of them is important. Every single one of them has
30 seconds.
Every single one of them has hours and services and goods that they are trying to promote. Perhaps our communications department team can go out and do featurettes on each and every one of those businesses, and then put those film stories of our businesses in our community on our cable TV channel that Maplewood has, and fill up that vacant time, and also put these little film stories of all of our businesses on the Maplewood YouTube channel. That's the way that we can help our businesses.
Thank you. And Bill Knutson.
Yes, thank you. I think of an important angle here is that we need to model the kind of safety behavior. For instance, wearing masks. You see such a disparity in people wearing masks. From a small business point of view, kind of interesting that if you were a restaurant owner and half of your clientele didn't want to wear a mask and half did, what happens is the person that wants to wear a mask looks in and finds no one wearing a mask, and they go someplace else. That's pretty typical. Think of it from the point of view even of going into a grocery store. And where would you go and shop? There was one store in Maplewood that wasn't doing very well, so we went to White Bear, where they do very well with masks. Encouraging a consistent approach is better for small business than a haphazard one. One of the things that I'm doing, I did my master's thesis in flexible budgeting, but I'm working with the city manager and the finance director to really establish a sense that everything is flexible. We should be able to look carefully at every project and everything that we're doing and look at it from, do we need to now? Can we do it later? And really look carefully into the financial reality of the situation we're in. Those are the things I would look at.
Thank you very much. So for the next question, I'm going to really jump around. I'm going to start with Sylvia Neblett. So this has been in the news all across the country, and there's no difference than in the city of Maplewood. So the question is, how would you approach the complicated topic of police reform?
Good question. Police reform. I know you often hear about, and this is a word that's been thrown around a lot, is defunding the police. And understanding what defunding the police means taking funds from the police budget and putting them in social, what I will call social areas, which could include social workers, could include sending them to school, etc. I don't, you know, as a rational person, you would think, well, that doesn't sound very bad. And if we were in a position like, say, another city, and not Maplewood, I would say, yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. But since 2016, the city of Maplewood has taken on the responsibility to take a look at what are we doing as a police department, and how do we become more of a community-based police department where we actually protect and serve all of our citizens. And I think that where we've come from and where we're at right now, I would say no to defunding the Maplewood Police Department for the simple reason is that they are protecting and serving the citizens of Maplewood. It's the reason you don't hear about police officers harassing or mistreating our citizens, because they have been on the trajectory to become community servants. And I think that that's what they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, same question, police reform, Nikki Villavicencio.
Hi, yes. So I have a lot of thoughts about this particular subject. I think that, you know, I look at public safety and police reform as something that is ever changing. You know, our communities are diverse and they are changing at all times. So I think our policies need to reflect those changes, and they need to reflect the neighborhoods that we have in Maplewood. And, you know, I'm a big believer in public safety, and I've attended many of the Coffee with the Cops in Maplewood, and I think that's a really important thing that the Maplewood Police Department does, and I hope they continue that after the COVID is done, and I hope that we can engage the community with the police in better ways, but in a more policy way. We need to understand that the issues that we are facing in this community are no different than St. Paul or Minneapolis or any other really city, because the issues are embedded in the training. So, for instance, I did attend some of the police commission meetings, and I thought they did a really good job of starting out in police reform. But we need more accountability. We need more accountability in when a police officer does something like use of force. Is there any follow-up to that training, and do they get training after that? Or how many times do they use police or use of force? Are there reprimands after that? And I think the citizens of Maplewood need to be very active in those discussions. And thank you. That's all I say for that.
Thank you. Bill Knutson, police reform.
Yeah, people ask me about that. I say no to defunding. I think it's too deep. When I look at what I'd like to see in police forces around, I look at Maplewood as an example. I've worked with the police, ever since I was at St. John's, when they had paramedics and so forth. Now we have community paramedics. One of the interesting things about that is it brings the public safety into the people of need. I asked a friend asked me the other day about, what you would do, and I said I would have ride-alongs with social workers. Then I come to read in the Maplewood Review that we have a program like that. So things are happening fast in Maplewood. The idea of community policing is really embedded here. When you look at the night out, look at all the fishing with a cop, all those kinds of things that go on, those are all about engagement, understanding, communicating, talking with, having fun with. The police also do a lot of volunteering, which is kind of notable. Relative to accountability, I have no concern whatsoever that the police need more accountability. They are very accountable, and I think this community is really a model for others would like to do in community policing, and really to avoid the angst that seems to be throughout the entire country, and with good reason. But here, I don't want to look the other way, but I just see this as a model police organization and a model for public safety, which is grander than just policing. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana Longree.
Yes, thank you for the question. I have three ideas on this question. One is I'd like to see that Maplewood has a civilian review board. So that way the board is made up of residents of Maplewood, from throughout all of Maplewood, different diversity, different demographics, and that they would hear public complaints regarding any policing incidents. And then also they would be looking into that and investigate whether or not if something further should be done. Two, I think that from our use of force handbook, that Maplewood must remove the chokehold or the carotid restraint from the toolbox of police restraint. At least two of the people who are running for office this election have indicated their support for the chokehold or that carotid restraint. And number three, I think it is also very important that we treat minor thefts, shoplifting, car break-ins, and property break-ins as not minor crimes to be shuffled away off into the corner someplace, but also as a precursor to more serious crime. And so that we must reduce those types of crime and those types of incidents, and that is by giving support to our police officers who are out there on the beat, who are responding to these. And so that would be my 3-point plan. I think that we need to have a civilian review board so that there can be a complaint process that is reviewed by the public, and that we remove the chokehold, and that we take petty crime seriously.
Thank you. Marylee Abrams.
Thank you very much. Police reform is an ongoing process, and I am very pleased. Since 2016, the Maplewood Police Department has really undergone a comprehensive redesign. It started off in 2016 with the death of Philando Castile. At the time, Paul Schnell was our chief of police. we put together a use of force task force that was made up of residents, and they looked at our use of force policies. There was also a police advisory commission that went through all of our policies in the police department. Our police department has developed a strategic plan and a mission statement that was put together with the the Police Advisory Commission. The Police Advisory Commission has now evolved into something called the Multicultural Advisory Commission that I am very proud of. It is a group of residents representing the diversity of our community who advise our police department and meet with them. In fact, there is a meeting of our Multicultural Advisory Commission tomorrow night. Since Philando Castile, we have also gone to body cameras, and all of our officers have gone through significant de-escalation training. There has been a real push in the department to hire more diverse officers that represent our community and what we look like. I worked together with Chief Mondor and Sergeant Duga, and most recently just announced that we are going to be having a Ramsey County social worker starting January of 2021 who's going to be embedded in our police department to help our police officers deal effectively with mental health issues. And this is a brand new program. I'm really excited to partner with Ramsey County about it so that because a number of police calls really stem from mental health issues. And by having a social worker that is going to be embedded in our police department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Bob Cardinal.
Thank you. How to approach police reform. I think community policing in neighborhoods, in each neighborhood, is important. People have to recognize there's some liability. It's a liability issue if somebody engages and steps in where only police can step forward. So we have to be concerned about that. I think we should take a real look at cleaning up our city. Cleaning up the yards, cars in yards, waste, down trees, junk. We need to help the neighbors clean up their neighborhood. I think that's going to help community policing. That means citizen engagement. I think with fire departments and the city helping. Feedback on the phone. I think this could be a city initiative. First, I think we have to have an open forum to get citizen input on what we as a city want, what we need in Maplewood if there is police reform. So I think the first thing we do is listen to the residents and let them tell us what we should do for police reform. So that's my direction right now.
Thank you. Next, Rebecca Cave.
Thank you for the question. On police reform, I think a lot of people in a lot of cities are looking at everything now since all of the chaos that has gone on with all these, the protests and the looting. And I think it's something Maplewood needs to be aware of. We have had our share out here, and I think our police department has done a phenomenal job. I do not support defunding the police. I support expanding the police. I'm very much in favor of getting a mental health unit and look forward to having the mental health helper that's coming in. A lot of people think training police in mental health is going to solve the problem of policing with mental health. And at this point, I don't think there's enough evidence in that. And I don't think that is a police officer's job to deal with too in-depth with mental health. They have to be trained how to deal with somebody who has a mental health issue. But I think there's a whole nother piece to that, and possibly getting more than just one person. That person's going to be used up pretty quick in Maplewood. The accountability in Maplewood Police Department, to me, has always been high. They've been highly respected, highly regarded in the community. I think maybe with everything that's going on, you've had a lot of people concerned. The ones I talked to in Maplewood don't feel that about our Maplewood police. So I don't want to canvass all the police departments in the United States that they're all alike. I'm very proud of our Maplewood Police Department. I think policies are forever changing with the times. I think having more citizen input is very important. And also having a dialogue with the police. They're out there every day, and we can't dictate to them what needs to be done if we don't even understand what they're needing from us. So when citizens hear the police officers, I think that's important too. Sometimes being a conduit between them is good, but having...
Thank you. And Garrett Krueger.
Yes, thank you. As far as police reform, I certainly wouldn't want to defund the department, but I do agree that the duties of the police, in some ways, they can be evolving over time. They need to be adjusted in some sense based on the needs of the community. For example, one of the things I've seen certainly take place in other communities is where, you get videos you see online, for example, of officers, they'll stop by and they'll play a brief pickup game of basketball, things like this with maybe some people in people in neighborhoods where they might be a little more at risk of getting a little crazier than they should. And I think this concept of encouraging the police to get out and do that sort of thing, even if they're organized events too, to create a family in a sense with the community and the law enforcement is important. When there is a need for a use of force, this can become a sticky situation. When I was in college, I had an interest in law enforcement and I took some criminal justice classes. And one of the things that you see early on, they show you these videos of, what would you do in a particular situation? And I remember one in particular that stuck in my mind. There's a tense situation, a hostage situation, I believe it was. And a young man comes out and is approaching us, so to speak, as the police. And he reaches behind his back. He's not listening to the commands. He doesn't stop when ordered to do so. And then the video stops and asks, what would you do in that situation? And many of the people said, I would have shot him. And it's a tough situation because what do you do? The problem was the guy turned out to be deaf and he wasn't able to understand what the police were saying. So he was reaching for a card to present that to the police. And so when it comes to use of force, I think we need to make use of body cam footage to review the relevance and also not necessarily restrict their toolbox, but provide education on when and how use of force is best used, especially as we move forward into the future. Thank you.
Thanks. So for the next question, we will start with Bill Knudsen. And I'm going to go to something a little bit more local. How do you feel about the discussions regarding the redevelopment of Maplewood Mall area? And has there been enough? That's one. And part of that is, has there been enough citizen input into that process? So again, Bill Knudsen.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I've been, like I say, I've been in the community for 36 years. And when I started developing St. John's, the only thing there was Maplewood Mall and Arby's. So I've watched that grow and I've watched it also descend. I think the North End plan is incredibly articulate and incredibly difficult. But I think with tenacity and, what we're doing in the EDA, Economic Development Authority, is we spent a Saturday touring other first-ring suburbs. We went to St. Louis Park, Robbinsdale, Richfield, places like that, and looked at what they were doing. There's no reason why we couldn't copy them. We stopped by Southdale, where they had a new rejuvenation hardware. They had hotels, and they also had apartments for people. So these are the kind of things that I think we need to look at carefully to reinvent really that as a destination center. It's going to be extraordinarily difficult to compete with Rosedale. That's one of the top centers in the world, in the country, actually. So we need to look at that again, as I said earlier, the medical corridor What could we do there? What about hotel? What about apartments? What about walkways? What about people that that have the new opportunities for the new bus traffic? So I think I'm very enthused about that project.
Thank you. So Maplewood redevelopment, Diana Longry.
Yes. With regard to the Maplewood Mall area, I think that the Maplewood Mall area must remain a commercial, job-producing business zone with a mix of retail, corporate office parks, and distribution centers, because all of these types of uses will capitalize on the location off of Interstate 694 and that transportation corridor. Now, of course, this isn't far-fetched, because currently in other locations, Washington Prime, which is the owner of a majority of the Maplewood Mall area there, in other locations, they are actually taking some of their mall space and coordinating that space into medical supply, warehousing, and distribution centers to complement the medical facilities that are close by these other shopping centers that they own. And so you see the North End study, when they are looking at taking so much of the commercial area and redirecting it to housing, is actually decreasing the value from its best and highest use as commercial property off of a major transportation corridor to moving it into a different land use. Now that creates ambiguity for the business community, because now they take a look at the North End study, and where they see that once they have retail and office buildings, now it's looking like it's supposed to be housing instead. Well, that creates that ambiguity as to exactly what are we looking at in Maplewood? Are we open for business to commercial, or are we looking to just have a bunch of housing? And so that is what has happened, unfortunately, as an unintended consequence of the North End study, is that it's created ambiguity so that Maplewood cannot necessarily be pointed towards being the commercial mecca that it could be. Thank you.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Next, Maplewood Mall redevelopment, Bob Cardinal.
Thank you. Redevelopment in Maplewood Mall area. A little history. That Maplewood Mall came into being in about 1970, 71, 72. It used to be a real farm field, and before that building, and then that was even before St. John's Hospital came into Maplewood. I think a technology center, you have a campus there, you have that mall, huge commercial property. I don't think it should change to high density housing. I think that's in that study. I don't know why they're pushing, the current council is pushing that housing there, but I would not go in that direction. I think it's got to be business, developing businesses and technology, keep it commercial. Certainly is room for another hotel or motel or three of them. That is close to the Bertrup Farm. That would be a nice segue into the history of Maplewood. Let's keep it that way. And it's a busy intersection out there just north of the mall. Don't need more transportation than what we have right there now.
Thank you. Marylee Abrams.
Thank you very much. Revisioning the Maplewood Mall area is a priority for the City Council. It's been a priority since I started with the council back in 2014, and as mayor, it is a priority for me as well. A great way to bring in the community and to have a variety of businesses and residents all share their input on what that mall area, what that larger area can look like. And we know that demographics are changing. We know that younger generations are wanting to live and work and shop in the same area. And so my focus is that this needs to be a mixed use area where we have retail, we have housing, we have businesses, because that's really what the younger demographic is looking for. That's what's really important. Now, I can tell you that coming to our council in the very near future is a proposal for a new hotel that is being proposed for that particular area. I can also tell you that prior to COVID, there was going to be a developer forum that the city was going to be holding with potential developers to come in and hear about the North End study, meet people with the city, and share an idea on what the future of the Maplewood Mall could look like. There are going to be transportation updates that are going to be happening there. I personally have met with the mall manager, and there are some new and exciting things that are going to be happening at the mall. COVID, unfortunately, has slowed down some of those business moves, but stay tuned, folks, because there's a lot happening. And we all know that Hy-Vee is being become their avenue to fill the old Rainbow store. Thank you.
Next, Nikki Villavicencio.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to sit on the North End Task Force, which I did that on behalf of the Parks and Recs Commission. I've been a Parks Commissioner since 2014. And what I learned about being on that task force is in the task force is mostly comprised of other commission members and other residents of Maplewood. And what I heard over and over again is that Maplewood residents want that area, specifically the North End, to be a walkable community. And so we need to break down those roads. We need to break down that huge amounts of pavement and make it more sustainable and make it more walkable. You know, we have streets that go up and down White Bear Avenue in Maplewood, and some of the sidewalks don't go anywhere, or they stop in awkward places. We need to clean up the trash cans. As a city, if there is not a trash can next to a bus stop, it should be garbage all over it, then the city has a responsibility to put a garbage can there. Otherwise, our Maplewood Mall looks bad. That's a very basic thing, I think, but it's an important thing. I'm a Maplewood mom, and I use the mall a lot, and I know that before COVID, we were in a housing crisis, and that is not going to change. By 2024, our renters, our needs for renters are going to increase dramatically. I'm also a renter and understand the needs that renters have, and we have a long ways to go in order to get the North End to where it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sylvia Neblett.
Okay, thank you. I think that the Maplewood Mall is very important to this area, but I think that we have to have a new vision for it. I don't believe that that in the coming years that the Maplewood Mall that you see today is going to look the same. I mean, if you look at the North End study, there's a lot of mixed use. The BRT, the bus rapid transit, will be coming through here in probably 5 years, maybe less. And I think that I think we will still have the Maplewood Mall, but I think it will just look and be something very different. There will be more housing around it. There will be more walking areas around it. It will just be, it'll be a different vision than what you see today. And just, it has to be, because right now in the condition that it's in, I would not call it thriving. It's existing, but I'm confident that it can be something more lively, more beneficial to the community. And so I believe it'll come back. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, Garrett Krueger.
Yeah, the Maplewood Mall location has always been a fantastic location right off the 694. And, but, you know, it's always seemed to come up a little bit short from what it I think could be. So I feel one of the really big things, I'd like to see some kind of broader, more extensive research, I guess, put it out to the community and find out on a larger scale, what is everybody missing? For example, one thing that I've always wished there were more of is actually restaurants, believe it or not. Right now with COVID, that's a little bit of a struggle, I understand, but we have to think beyond that. And, you know, if we want to go out to eat, in the most situations, you have to either go to Roseville or go over to Woodbury to find something. And as somebody earlier said, I think a lot of us would like to just run up the street to get something. We don't want to go too far. So let's find out what the community, in a larger sense, not just a handful, but, you know, in a larger sense, find out what they're missing. You know, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that not too far from me. And then, you know, go after that, find out how we can make use of it better. If it's more medical facilities, that would be great. Or if it's more restaurants, that would be great. In fact, even, you know, in some of these medical pockets where people come and stay for overnight treatments, you see a lot of restaurant development around the clinics as well as the hotels that also go up there. So, but I think really I think the people need to answer this question to really help us understand what the community is missing. Have them tell us what needs to be there and get the broader consensus. Thank you.
And Rebecca Cave.
Yes, thank you. When I see the Maplewood redevelopment, it comes to mind when I was on the Gladstone redevelopment. And the biggest thing in that redevelopment is what the last person just mentioned, citizen involvement. Everybody can sit on a council and want your opinions of what you want there and what you think should go there. But it's really the people of Maplewood who should be determining what goes there and what their needs are. Are there restaurants? Are there hotels? You definitely have to tap into the medical piece of it. You have to look at all the business owners around there. Looking at distribution center and retail, I think it's the thing about location, or the thing about Maplewood Mall is location, location, location. It's fabulous for business. I think housing can be looked at in another part, but that's my opinion. I think if citizens want housing there, that is something we need to look into. But I think that this needs to be a business mecca. You've gone over to Maplewood or to Woodbury, where the old State Farm building was, and I couldn't believe when they tore that down. And then what they built was just, you know, a walkable area of 1 million businesses over there, and it's just kind of amazing. So I think we do need to keep businesses, to keep people working in our city, to keep people thriving in our city, and Maplewood Mall definitely needs a major facelift. So thank you.
Thank you. So next question, and with this one we will start with, let's just start with Rebecca Cave.
Sure.
Do you support bans or limitations on evictions, which of course has been a big issue due to COVID-19? And if you could talk about why.
Sure. Well, now that the big topic of evictions has come up with the COVID-19, I can't say I would not. I'm sorry, I'm echoing in the phone. You have to give owners of apartment complexes and buildings a tool to get their income. Their income is rent. They have to have a tool to say, if you're not paying your rent, what can we do? And by allowing people to not pay their rent for multiple months at a time, that's not sustainable for someone who owns a building or an apartment complex. So do I believe in evictions? I do. Do I believe it during this COVID right now? I think putting a moratorium on evictions was the best thing that could happen. This is something that's unprecedented and hasn't happened before. So you also need a flexibility when something like this happens. And that's one of the biggest things when you're on a city council is you have to be flexible in situations. And being flexible would be changing that and adapting to it, because you need people to have a place to live. You need people to sustain when you're going through such an economic downturn. So that would be my take on evictions.
Thank you. Next, Garrett Krueger.
Yeah, excuse me. Limits on evictions. Well, first off, I am a landlord, so I do have a position on this. And no, I would not support having a ban on evictions. As the previous person said, I think the broader problem here is that if you allow people to not pay indefinitely, and that's the case I've had, people do that, you know, the landlord then takes a hit, and you're just enabling these people then to just exist without having to pull their end of it. What I think a lot of people don't know is that most of us in that property management position, the properties are not owned, they're still being paid for. So if we don't receive rent, then we have trouble paying the bank, and the bank isn't going to stop. The bank doesn't care who lives there. The bank is just going to kick us out and then kick the renters out anyway. So it's really ultimately in the renter's best interest to pay the rent. Now, I understand under COVID, this has put a strain on things. If there's a way that the community could work with both the landlords and subsequently the banks to put a non-stressful hold or stay on both paying the rent and subsequently the mortgage, then I would certainly support that. But otherwise, yeah, in the broader sense, no, I would not support banning evictions or limitations on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia Neblett.
Yes, thank you. This is a really hard question, and it's a really hard question because it becomes like, well, do you want people to have a place to live, or do you want to throw them out in the street? And I know that's kind of a broad one end of the spectrum to the other, but these are different times. We have never experienced anything like this before. And I understand that landlords have to maintain property. They have to pay just like you expect the renters to pay. But there has to be some kind of humanity during this time period. And I just cannot believe that people are just going, well, it's the COVID, so I'm just not going to pay my rent. I don't think that, I'm sure there might be people like that, but generally during this time, I don't believe people are choosing not to pay rent just because they think they can take advantage of the situation. I think sometimes it's a matter of, do I want to eat or do I want to pay my rent right now? I just think that the issue is so complex and difficult because you're talking about people's lives. You're not talking, we're talking about buildings, but you're also talking about people's lives. And then if you don't ban evictions during this time period, and maybe it is for a certain time period, then do we create more of a problem by making people homeless? I get it. It's a catch-22, but right now during this time period of COVID, and we're still in it, I don't want people thrown out in the street.
2 minutes.
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Sylvia Neblett. Nikki Villavicencio.
Thank you. Yes, as I said in the previous question, I'm a renter, so this is an issue that's dear to my heart. And as far as during our COVID situation, Governor Tim Walz did ask for a ban on evictions during the time, but it's not forever. It's for 60 days after his emergency times will lapse. So, just like everybody's got to pay their mortgages and everybody's got to pay their rent. I agree with that, and I agree with what Sylvia said. People are not just purposefully paying their rent, but as someone who lives in a fourplex and talks to my neighbors on almost a daily basis, it is difficult for renters. And, I can imagine it's difficult for landowners as well. But I do know that there's grants and deferments through the CARES Act for people who are property owners. And renters don't have those opportunities. And, also, too, if we evict people during COVID, that affects us all, because then we have more people on the street and possibly making the pandemic even worse. And I'll end my comments with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Marylee Abrams.
Thank you very much. I agree with Sylvia. This is a very challenging question, because I think the answer lies in a balance, balancing the interests of keeping people in homes and preventing homelessness, while also recognizing and acknowledging the landlords. And the landlords have an obligation to pay their mortgages and to pay their bills. And without rent coming in, certainly that puts an undue burden on landlords. And so this really is a very complex issue. One of the things that I think we're going to have to get better at is learning to live with COVID. And I think we need to keep following the science on that. My concern is that, if you look at it right now, it's a very cool time of year, unseasonably cool for such an early time in September. We're looking ahead at the winter months, and we do not want to create more homelessness when we are staring down, a brutal winter that no doubt is heading our way. We also don't want to force landlords to have to sell their properties, because no doubt there would be some large businesses, large corporations that would come in and buy a lot of the housing. And that's not going to solve the problem either. We really need to learn how to better live with this. And I think we need to work at really working and helping our neighbors. I know that Ramsey County does have grants and tax relief that is available. And I think, each situation is going to be a unique situation, but this is really going to be a balancing position where we have to take a look at this because there are dire consequences for what lies ahead if we don't approach this.
2 minutes.
Thank you.
Next, Bob Cardinal.
A ban on evictions. The apartments, residents and property developers and owners, the management, very difficult situation. I know it's just going to continue to hurt Maplewood, to the city of Maplewood. The whole city suffers. So I think we have to recognize that. If the renters need to move for not paying rent, we have to look to the financial lenders to offer some assistance to both property owners and developers. Right now, there's more renters than owners in St. Paul, and Maplewood could become like St. Paul with more renters than homeowners. We can see that trend coming about. So the shortage of apartments also leads to maybe making those that are missing 2 or more payments need to move. That's going to move and help the overall change with property taxes being paid. So very difficult situation. I'm not too privy to what the situation in Maplewood is, but I know that it's probably turning into what's happening in St. Paul.
Thank you. Bill Knutson?
Yeah, I have an interesting approach to this. I think, frankly, there's enough cash in the entire economic system. It's just not deployed very well. I mean, there's lack of productivity, which causes all kinds of trouble. But when you think of the stock market is still churning away, other than today and yesterday, but frankly, it's still doing well. What we need to do is move the whole chain. In other words, the renter, the owner, the financier, and move it all the way up and take a pause. There'll be no harm if everything's moved to the end of the lease, moved to the end of the mortgage, or anything that happens. You could ultimately find some kind of a means test. I mean, there's a good one for schools, and that's called the FAFSA. Probably not pertinent here, but there could be something like that. So I think the whole thing is probably going to be taken care of at a national and state level, probably not Maplewood. But our approach and our support for those kinds of decisions, I think, really has to go for the people that need it to put the whole chain on pause. No harm to the tenant, no harm to the property owner, no harm to the bank. Thank you.
Thank you. And Diana Longley.
Yes. Well, I've given some thought to this, and the idea of putting the whole chain on pause, that's probably not within the reach of a city council. But as an attorney, I can tell you that I have represented both landlords and also tenants. And they are both tied together by one document, and that's their contract between the two of them. And certainly if the tenant is not able to make their full payment, that's a hardship on the tenant. And, you know, in this time, it's not appropriate to have eviction. However, you've got the landlord who can maybe not make their payments either. So what I was thinking is that in Maplewood here, we have many, many attorneys, and not every landlord-tenant relationship is the same. And it's only some tenants that are not able to afford their full rental amount. So what if Maplewood were to assemble a group of attorneys who would volunteer their time to work with landlords and tenants, where they could work out some kind of sliding scale that in the short term, the tenants would pay as much as they could pay, yet still put food on their table, and that it would still help that landlord be able to make their obligations as well. And certainly then those shortfalls could be added on to the end of the lease, or that there could be some other arrangement that might be made. I don't know what that would be, but it would be between those two parties. And certainly there may very well be attorneys in Maplewood that would love to volunteer their time to be part of this outreach project that could help our community.
Thank you. So I think we have time for one more short question before we go to the closing statements. So we will start this one, let's see, with Nikki Villavicencio. So flavored tobacco products like menthol cigarettes and fruit-flavored e-cigarettes, that sort of thing, appeal to teens and contribute to health disparities. Do you support ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products in the city of Maplewood, as several other Minnesota cities have already done and are considering, and if why or why not?
Linda,
so I would like you to do 1 minute.
Linda, 1 minute for this question.
1 minute.
Okay. 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. So you gotta, yes, no, and why. Flavored tobacco sale ban. And we'll start with Nikki Villavicencio.
Yes, thank you. Simply, I would say, no, I do not support a ban on flavored tobacco. I am not a tobacco user and never have been, but I don't think that's a reasonable thing for our city to do. We have flavored alcohol and we don't ban that. So I'm not for the prohibition of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sylvia Neblett.
Thank you. I too am not a supporter of the ban of flavored, not tobacco, but
e-cigarettes.
E-cigarettes. And the reason why is that there are lots of adults who like flavored e-cigarettes. And yes, and that's why. Thank you.
Thank you. Garrett Krueger.
No, I do not support banning flavored tobacco products either. My primary basis on it is I am a very strong supporter of freedom. I think people need to be allowed to make their own choices for good or for bad. And as was previously stated, there are quite a number of people who do like the flavored products. If there's anything that could be done, perhaps to limit them from getting in the hands of the underage, that I would certainly support, but I would not be interested in banning the sale of them in their entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Cave.
Yes, I also am not in favor of any flavored tobacco ban. I do not smoke any, but I do agree with the freedom and when you're an adult to choose things that that you'd like to choose, and I would be not in the favor of a ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana Longry.
I am not in favor of a ban of flavored tobacco products. The reason why is because I think that adults who are of age should be able to purchase it. We do have code enforcement and in Maplewood where we routinely go and make sure that the various vendors selling the various products like tobacco and alcohol, that they are checking IDs. So I'm very confident we will do our job that way. And certainly Maplewood could use their Maplewood newsletter as a means of education. And they could talk about the importance of not providing it to underage consumers. Thank you.
Bill Knutson.
Well, this is really about encouraging young people, and with Tobacco 21, it becomes a moot issue. So I don't see any banning of flavored tobacco for adults.
Thank you. Bob Cardinal.
Flavored tobacco products. This is something that leads to shopping next door. If they're shut down in Maplewood, they're just going to shop elsewhere. It's a health issue, and I'm going to expand it a little bit. Medical marijuana is very expensive. I think they're driving the people that use marijuana go into the black market and buy marijuana instead of going to the medical marijuana.
30 seconds.
It's a health issue, so I'd expand that to the whole state and take a real hard look at it. This really is a state issue. So I would not go with the ban on flavored tobacco.
Thank you. Marylee Abrams.
Thank you very much. With the legislative change to Tobacco 21, tobacco is only to be purchased by adults in the entire state of Minnesota. I am not a tobacco user. I do not support a ban on flavored tobacco products. 21-year-olds are adults. They can make their own adult decisions. And I believe that we should foster that freedom. So no, I don't support a ban on flavored tobacco products. Thank you.
Thank you. Clean sweep, I guess, on that one. So, So we're now ready for our closing statements, and we're going to do this in complete reverse order to the opening statements. And remember, you have 2 minutes for your closing statements. We'll start with the special election for the 2-year seat on the City Council with Diana Longry.
Yes, thank you very much again for this opportunity. I want to direct everyone to my website, dianalongry.com, DianaLongrie.com, or simply give me a jingle at 651-214-0859. One of the questions that was asked of us in the written League of Women Voters for the Voter Guide was, what is the picture that you see for the future of Maplewood in the next 10 years? And this is part of my comment. One, that public comment is returned as an agenda item on the City Council meeting agenda so that the residents' voices can be heard once more. Two, that our Nature Center is open to the public and funded by city resources and not privatized. Three, that the Maplewood Mall remains a commercial, job-producing business zone with a mix of retail, corporate office parks, and distribution centers, all capitalizing on the location of the Interstate 694 transportation corridor. Next, that our parks and city natural preserves are permanently protected from development. Next, that we reduce crime and incidents of minor crime are taken seriously by the police chief and that he or she improves his or her policy and direction and has a no-nonsense response to addressing theft, shoplifting, cart break-ins, and property break-ins, and that we need 3 fire stations, not 2, in our oddly shaped community. Next, an unadulterated, protected Bruce Central Nature Trail with its lovely tree canopy. We need connectivity between greenways, open space, and green space, and responsible budgeting and spending with priorities focusing on the core services, not drones and other kinds of frivolous things. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, closing statement for the seat, the 2-year seat on the special election for City Council, Bill Knudsen.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I have thoroughly enjoyed serving for the last year and a half or so and learned a lot. Very impressed with the city and its citizens. I think I've been able to contribute a lot relative to really Maplewood as a stable community. When you balance the needs of people with the basic needs of streets, protection, services, I think Maplewood does a great job, and I've really been able to dig in and take a closer look at that. I think during the COVID period, we acted very appropriately. We are going to restructure our relationship with the Nature Center and Parks and Rec. So much of that activity comes from outside Maplewood. It's really an important time to look at it as a regional concern and look at a regional solution. We can't afford to continue to be the only supporter. I think the development and redevelopment is critical to Maplewood. I think we need to balance residential and commercial. We need to look at places for people to live and work, and to encourage more people to work in Maplewood. And that takes a careful look at our healthcare system and all the things that people need for basic needs. Schools, grocery. And I also like to support 2 wonderful school districts. They do a great job, and I'm very interested in continuing my involvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our candidates for the 2 full-term seats on the City Council. And we will start with Nikki Villavicencio.
As I end, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, Roseville area, for hosting this forum, and thank the residents of Maplewood for being active in democracy. Governing is something I take seriously, and if given the chance, I will fight for our families, listen to the wisdom that exists here in Maplewood, and evolve with the diversity that is yet to come. My commitments are to growing a sustainable environment where we cultivate policy with the most impacted parts of our community, like our local businesses and families. I hope I can have your support on November 3rd for Maplewood City Council. And if you're not busy on Friday afternoons, I do a yard side chat in my yard. So please come and visit me and let me know what's important to you in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Next candidate for one of the 2 full-term seats in the City Council, Sylvia Neblett.
Thank you. I would like your vote. I've acquired skills, knowledge, and abilities in my past working life that allows me to work cooperatively, think strategically, and make hard decisions when necessary. I've enjoyed my work on the council these past a year and a half. While it's easy to say what hasn't been done or isn't being done, it's much harder to make decisions when you have to make those decisions thinking about all citizens. Not the loudest citizens, but all citizens. But that's our job as a council person, to think about everyone. I want us to be a city where people feel free to contact the mayor or council and express their concerns. I want us to be a city that everyone who wants to live in Maplewood feels welcome and gets involved. I'm proud of Maplewood. Do we have work to do? Of course. But we're a strong city. I've enjoyed, like I said, being on the council this last year and a half, and I hope that I'm given the opportunity to serve the citizens 4 more years. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for this opportunity, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Garrett Krueger.
Yes, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum tonight, and thank everyone for participating. It's been a joy to participate, and I would just like to state again that in a republic in which we live, the individual matters, and my entire focus is to represent the individual. As I said earlier, sometimes I've been frustrated when I've contacted representatives and I felt they simply were not listening to me or didn't really care or just went and did what they wanted to do. And I would like to change that. That's my primary purpose, my primary directive. Even if I disagree, no matter how I've answered questions earlier tonight, that's my opinion. But if I meet with an overwhelming perspective that differs from that, then it's my job to put aside my own opinion and represent the people. And that is what I will do. So I want to ask for your vote again, Garrett Krueger, for the Maplewood City Council in November. And thank you again for this opportunity.
And finally, Rebecca Kay for one of those 2 full-term seats on the City Council.
Yes. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and thank you all the candidates that were here tonight. This has been really fun. Little technical difficulties at first, but you guys, you ladies, really pulled this off. I want to say, for everyone who's listening tonight, if you say yes to nonpartisan politics, if you say yes to having a strong advocate, then you say yes to Rebecca Kay for Maplewood City Council. That's who I am. I've proven myself. I have a track record and a commitment to all of you citizens. I'll make it simple. I'm for public safety. I always have been. I have a track record for that also. Keeping parks, public open space, and the nature center reopening and protect the rest of our parks and public open space, I have been for that. I was for that and helped develop Fish Creek instead of going into a development. I'm very much in favor of business retention and redevelopment. I'm into affordable housing. I think that's very important in Maplewood. We have wonderful neighbors in North St. Paul, and I want to continue our mutual aid with our neighboring cities. I also think public safety is a #1 concern for both our citizens and workers in Maplewood. Maplewood City Council and Mayor's Office are nonpartisan seats. I'm proud that I am a nonpartisan politician. I do not have a shield of a politician on my back. I feel very strong that I'm an independent person. I do not side with one side or the other, and I listen to you. And you know from the past how much I've listened to you. So vote on November 3rd for a strong female candidate. Vote for Rebecca Kay. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you. And now our 2 candidates for the special election for mayor. We'll start with Bob Cardinal.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, specifically Cecilia Warner and Linda McLoon. Thank you very much. I'm seeking to serve all the Maplewood citizens and asking for your vote to serve all Maplewood citizens, to bring responsive government to the citizens of Maplewood. Electing Bob Cardinal with accountability, transparency, and most of all, trust to the citizens of Maplewood. Maplewood really needs leadership now. If you vote for Bob Cardinal, you're voting to support families. We want to direct our business and best jobs to Maplewood residents who support our local businesses and schools. We will do this in two ways: give them the networking tools and connections to get the best jobs and help them start businesses or income streams. The city connects people with people with ideas, and people with opportunities. One of the most important tools of the city is the website. That website is www.maplewoodmn.gov. Relationship networking. A community we share the common bond of living in Maplewood. I'm asking for your support and vote in the upcoming election, November 3rd. I raised my family here, and I sure hope you care as much as I do about Maplewood, our home. Please vote Bob Cardinal for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second candidate for the special election for mayor, Marylee Abrams.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the candidates. Thank you, Moderator McLoon and Timekeeper Warner. Thank you to the Maplewood communication staff, Joe Sharon and Kevin Schmitz, for your technical assistance in getting us up and running in a virtual candidate forum. For all of those listening out there tonight, this is a very important election. There are 4 open seats on the council, the mayor's seat and 3 at-large council seats. I have been honored to have served on the Maplewood City Council since 2014, re-elected in 2018, and appointed as mayor in 2019. Our city deserves a mayor who can make tough decisions and has a compassionate heart. She should be a woman of integrity and someone who is trustworthy, a professional who is trusted and respected. She should be hardworking and knowledgeable, a great communicator who is going to listen to all points of view and make solid decisions, even when they are tough decisions. She should be fiscally responsible and use common sense economics, someone who wants to reduce our debt and ensure great public services are delivered in our city. Our city deserves good government. The future of our community depends on it. Let's all look forward together to a bright future. Vote for Mayor Marylee Abrams. I ask for your support on November 3rd. And please, everyone, stay healthy out there. These are challenging times. Please vote for me for mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to remind the listeners that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. And sponsorship of the forum is not an endorsement by the League for any candidate. I would also like to thank all of the candidates for their participation in this virtual candidate forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I would like to acknowledge and thank all of these candidates who are serving their community by their willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for office. I would also like to thank the Voter Service Committee, because this was a new world here for our candidate forums, particularly Cecilia Warner and Teresa Wernicke of the Roseville Area League of Women Voters, as well as the city of Maplewood, particularly Joe Sharon and Michael Folds. Thank you for all of the technical assistance that was just critical. This forum will be aired in its entirety on your local public cable channel and on Facebook and all of those wonderful social media sources, so please check those for air times. Every vote does count. This election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. If you are going to vote in person, if you haven't done a mail-in ballot, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We want you to stay safe, and we thank you again. Good night.
Good night.
So I'm clapping. Yay. Thank you, everybody.